Hey, it's Kurt here for my review of fluid film, and this is not a typical review of fluid film. I've seen a lot of videos out there where they just show everybody spraying the fluid film on the car, and those are fine videos. They're a little boring though. There's lots of them out there and you can watch those if you want. I'm not going to be spraying any fluid film here. I'm just going to talk about how it works and what I think of the product. I'm not being paid by fluid film or anything. I'm not getting any free product for this. I've just seen it on a lot of the forums, heard about it, so I thought I'd try it out myself. I put it on my car 2 years ago and I think it worked out pretty well, and I did it last year again. I'm going to be comparing my car, which has seen 2 Michigan winters, to another car that I was looking at purchasing before I bought mine. And this car has definitely not had any fluid film on it. If you notice the pictures that I'm going to show later in the video, it's really rusty and it's very apparent there was no fluid film or any other rust proofing for that matter. My car is a 2012 Impreza, and the car that I'm comparing it to is a 2013 Subaru Crosstrek. So they're the same car. The Crosstrek is just lifted a little bit higher. Everything else is the same. And a little background on the cars. My car is a 2012, like I said. It was originally from Florida, and when I purchased it in 2016, it was brought up here prior to purchase, so I hadn't seen any Michigan winters before I got it. I've put fluid film on it before it was exposed to any road salts. The car I'm comparing it to is a 2013 Crosstrek, and that was purchased up here, and it lived its whole life up here, and it had at the time in 2016 it only had 3 Michigan winters, so I had one more winter than mine, and I am hoping my car does not look like this Crosstrek does in another year. I'll make a follow-up video and show what mine does look like next year after the winter, so we can get an accurate comparison for 3 years to 3 years. Here's my review of fluid film. It is a rust inhibitor and corrosion protectant, and it is made of lanolin, like I said. And what lanolin is used for is it is actually what sheep use in their wool to help shed water. So it's a fluid displacer, kind of like WD-40, only the big difference between WD-40 and fluid film is fluid film doesn't run as much as WD-40. It's a lot thicker, so it stays where you put it, and it's very difficult for it to be removed. It's very sticky. It does seep. It creeps and seeps a little bit like WD-40 does, but it's a lot thicker again, so it's going to take a lot longer to creep to different places. It's not just going to run right off your car. Fluid film comes in little cans here. You can also buy it in a large jug, like a paint can size, if you'd like to. The reason you would put it in a giant paint can is if you had like a paint spray gun, and I've heard it's best if you heat it up if you're using the paint spray gun. I use the cans because it's nice and easy and you don't have to get all this equipment. You don't have to clean your gun out every time. If you're going to be putting it on multiple times a year or for more than one vehicle, I would recommend using the spray gun because it sprays a lot faster. You don't have to get a new can out every time, and once you're loaded up, you can just spray away. It's also best if you put it up on a lift for that. I just use a jack and jack stands, one for the front, jack up the front and do the front side, jack up the back, do the back side. Again, my car is not very big. I have a Subaru Impreza here. It's again, not a very big car, so it doesn't take me a whole long time to do it. When I did mine the first time, I pulled the fender liners. I'm going to get a light under here so you can see. I pulled these plastic fenders that are up in here when I applied it the first time, so I could get under those. And I didn't do that the second time because most of that is not hit with road spray, so you can't really, it won't really take it off, so it should still be under there from the first time I applied it. You can see I got the shock towers a little bit there as well. Alright, here we are underneath the car. I have the back of the car jacked up, and as you can see here, there is not much rust. You can see a little bit on the exhaust, and the reason for the rust on the exhaust, as you can see right here, very rusty. You can't put fluid film on the exhaust, and the exhaust gets very warm. As you know, and if fluid film gets too warm, it can actually light on fire. so you don't want to spray it on your exhaust, so that's why that's rusting out. I've heard people that have accidentally oversprayed on their exhaust, and it's actually just burned off slowly, not actually caught on fire, but probably better safe rather than sorry to just and try your best to not get it on the exhaust. Here you can see it's just caked on these cross members and these subframe supports and all the suspension components here. These bolts there that hold the suspension components on and the struts, these are very rusty on some other cars. If you look here on the diff I've noticed on other Subarus, the diff plug and drain bolts, those really get rusty really quickly. I'll show you some pictures. I was looking at a 2013 or 14 Crosstrek, I believe, when I was looking to buy this, and that did show a lot of rust spots there. I do have a little spot of rust right there, that bright orange spot. That's on the looks like the input flange for the half shafts here in the back. And the only other spot really that is rusty, there's a little bit on the upper strut tower there, probably because I missed a spot. The brake hubs here. And the reason that these are rusty is because the first time I sprayed, I did not hit those because I didn't want to get some overspray on the rotors or on the wheels at all. So I did not spray that spot, but for the most part it's looking pretty good back here. There's the occasional spot of rust here and there, but this is looking pretty good for the rear. And this car is a 2012, so it's yeah, that bolt there I didn't get super well either. You can see kind of the spots where I did hit it better, spots where I kind of missed it. So I need to make sure I do that a little bit better. But a lot of these suspension components look really good for how old this car is. Look at the tailgate. This is a spot that really gets rusty on a lot of cars very quickly, down on the bottoms of the doors in the back. So one thing I did is, if you can see it here, I sprayed up in these open holes under here, and those open holes are where the license plate lights are. When I sprayed there, it started seeping out of these cracks here up on the top, so it kind of spread everywhere underneath this entire lip here, this entire trim piece, and that'll help to stop the corrosion building up in there. It's very noticeable here on the fuel door. See this like brown, black crap, and that's kind of why I didn't wash my car before I did this video, so you could see how this stuff really seeps. I sprayed the inside of my door here, my fuel door. I'll open it up to show you. Sprayed the inside. You can see here where none of the road spray hits it. You can see it's still wet. I put this on almost a year ago, and it's been through an entire winter, and it's still wet in here. See, if I put my finger on it, see that it's still wet to the touch. And that spot here is where the road spray won't hit it, so it's going to stay wet there for a really long time. Lastly here, I'm going to show you under the hood. It's not pretty, obviously, because this fluid film, it's wet, and any road debris, salt, sand, dirt, dust, anything is going to stick to it. I sprayed the tops of the shock towers here, sprayed all the frame rails in the front here, and this will just help to keep the rust from starting to form in the first place. You can see I got it down there on the subframe. Or not the subframe, the frame rails there. Again on the shock towers here, and all this crap sticks to it. I got some nice bugs building up here. I got it on the hood as well, up on the entire front of the hood. The reason I did that is that's a very common spot for rock chips to form. And if you get a rock chip that you don't see right on the edge of the hood, you can start to rust there, and this will just help to stop that from happening. I also sprayed up inside the hood, and that'll help keep it away, keep the rust at bay, hopefully. And my final thoughts on fluid film. I would definitely recommend fluid film. If you're only going to keep your car for a few years, I would not recommend doing fluid film. It's not going to have that much of an effect. It's not going to rust through the body only within 3, 4, 5, 6 years, so I wouldn't worry about that. Just be a waste of money and time. But if you plan on keeping your car for a long time, I plan on keeping my car another 10, 15, 20 years possibly, and I don't want it to be getting holes through the entire door and having the rocker panels completely fall off on my car. For example, my dad has a Ford Focus 2001, and it has about 330,000 miles on it. And he's taken really good care of the car. He has used synthetic oil in it. It runs great. The only problem is that the rocker panels completely rusted off. He had to weld new ones on. He's got huge holes through the doors. And it's just kind of falling apart completely. It's rusting completely through, and it's less than 20 years old, and I hope that doesn't happen with my car, so that's why I used fluid film on it. Another thing is that I like to do my own maintenance on my car. If I can use fluid film and not have to use a blowtorch to a bolt to get it undone because it's completely rusted through, and reuse the bolt, that's going to save me a lot of time down the road and money and parts. One other thing I would like to talk about is another rust proofing method I've heard about, and it's called Pour 15. A lot of people really swear by it. The big difference between Pour 15 and fluid film is Pour 15 is great if it's used correctly. You need to use it when the car is basically brand new, before it's seen any road grime or salt or anything like that, because you want the undercarriage and the suspension components to be completely clean before you apply it. If there's rust already underneath when you put Pour 15 on, it's just going to bubble up and crack the Pour 15 once it dries out. What that's going to do is that's going to create a hole in the barrier, and water is going to seep in, moisture, dirt, grime, salt's going to seep in, and it's going to get stuck under. Fluid film's a displacer, so it pushes the moisture out, and it makes a nice protective barrier between the metal and the moisture.